Hi guys, today I'm coming to you with a new video. This one is gonna be a guide on how to play Yellow Boba. So for the past couple weeks I've been playing a lot of Yellow Boba, and in Spark Rebellion I've been known for playing a lot of Green Boba. I played in Polish community. I've won quite a few store showdowns with it. I believe it was 6. So yeah, the reason why I decided to switch to the yellow version is because of all the new additions that this deck got. Like, there are a lot of great things that this deck was lacking in the set 1. So mainly 4-drops, Forlum and Beckett are insanely good. So the main reason why you were running green Boba instead of yellow one in set 1 was just to skip the awful 4 resource round, because the green villain yellow in set 1 didn't really have many great 4-drops, so ramp essentially allowed you to skip them and move on to the good cards that you had. So now that we have new good 4-drops, this upside of playing ramp is not as crucial anymore. So I believe that yellow version is the better one in the new set. Also, you can play stuff like Cunning for 4 resources. I've been running 3 copies of Cunning in my green Boba just for a long time, and it was performing really well, and I never considered playing any fewer than 3 in set 1. So yeah, it's really good to have it for 4 resources. There is also from new cards, there is Sukus, so just a really strong card that synergizes with Forlum, allows you to watch leaders. Toro, also a really strong bounty hunter that allows you to do a lot of damage, some upgrades, Fetch Armor, Jetpack, and Lurky TIE Phantom. Okay, I'll move on now to the earlier stages of the early game with Boba. So we have standard package of Greedo, Crafty Smuggler, Viper Prop Droid, which were already played in Spark Rebellion. The new addition is Mercenary Gunship, and the reason why I like Mercenary Gunship over Cartel Spacer, which was played in this slot in Spark Rebellion, is because of first of all, Mercenary Gunship deals more damage, so he has a 3 attack, and Cartel only had 2 attack. So now we can one-shot stuff like A-Wing and stay alive, or other threats. Also, the downside of the fact that Mercenary Gunship has a 4 resource ability that your opponent can use in order to take him is not that big of a deal in Boba, because when you play Boba, you tend to have more resources than your opponent because your leader ability to untap resources. Also, the Boba is quite an aggressive deck, so you tend to have a lower curve than your opponent, and the fact that the opponent can pay 4 resources in order to take the gunship is gonna hurt them more in the long run if they play a control decks, because you're happy of just trading those 4 resources in a lot of cases. Besides that, the Mercenary Gunship can be bounced by your cards like Cunning, like Waylay, like Bouncer, and the Mercenary Gunship is considered at that point, if the opponent had taken him as enemy unit, so you get to untap 1 resource, and then you can replay the Mercenary Gunship because he comes back to its owner's hand. So you are the owner of the card. So it's a nice little trick you can do with the Mercenary Gunship. Besides with that, we have just a good 3-drop package, Boba and 7 Fleet Defender, which were great in set 1. A new addition of Toro, a really strong unit that allows you to deal even more damage with his ability. So basically, whenever you play a Bounty Hunter, you can untap Toro by dealing 1 damage to the Bounty Hunter. One really cool combo you can do with Toro is Cunning on him. So basically, on 4 resources, you can play Cunning on Toro, give him +4, and then use the ability of Cunning to return the unit to its owner's hand in order to untap 1 resource with your Boba leader. And then, because you have the 1 resource, you can now attack with Toro, deal 7 damage, and because you have that 1 resource, you can play Greedo. So now you can use Toro's ability on Greedo. Yes, Greedo dies, sure. You get to use his When Defeat ability, but you get to untap Toro, and because you played Cunning on him and gave him +4, the buff is still there because it's the same round, so you get to deal 7 more damage, and that's basically 14 damage on the opponent base in only on 4 resources, so that's a lot. Obviously, there are quite a few downsides to this play. So the main reason is the main downside is just the fact that your opponent can have an answer to that. So they can have something to tap one of your units, tap Toro, I mean, return him to your hand or kill him just right away because he has only 5 HP. I mean, only 5 HP is a lot, but some cards can just deal with that on 4 resources, like Takedown. But yeah, besides that, you don't develop the board on those 4 resources, and I would say that 3, 4, and sometimes 5 resources are the round where you want to really develop the board. 2 resources, obviously, because it's the first round, but you want to apply the pressure with events and stuff like that from 5, 6, 7 resources rounds, stuff like that. So sometimes Cunning is not the most ideal to be played on the third round, but it's a really good combo to keep in mind that you can do that. And if you play a really tempo-oriented matchup, this might come in handy and win you game. So yeah, keep that in mind. There's also 1 copy of Lurker, so I just wanted to add a 10th free drop unit that you can play on 3 resources, because Waylay is not particularly great on 3 resource, because as I've mentioned a moment ago, on 3 resources you want to develop the board, and playing a removal is okay, but because you don't develop the board, the fact that if your opponent has more late game oriented deck, they are gonna come out on top in this type of trade. So sure, you can play Greedo, but I would rather just play a 7th Fleet or Toro or something like that. So now we have Lurking TIE Fighter, TIE Phantom. It just went off because it can be countered by some cards, but you can say, I mean, that there are quite a few 2-cost ships that can kill him and stay alive. So A-Wings, Restore Arc, stuff like that. They can be played on first round. Then if you play this guy on 3 resources and then they kill your Lurking TIE Phantom, stay alive, that's a really terrible trade for you. But because you have 3 copies of 7th Fleet Defender, the opponent is less likely to play the early game ships in the Space Arena, because 7th Fleet Defender trades up basically with all of the early ships that the opponent can play. So yeah, I just like the idea of playing 1 copy of TIE Phantom. You can also play Body, which is more suited to play against control, but when we'll move on to the sideboard, I'll talk more about Body. We have also upgrades, so Offense Armor and Jetpack, which are sometimes a good play that you can make on 3 or 4 resources, because you can play it on one of your unit, kill the opponent unit because you have the plus strength from both upgrades, and also they provide you some form of HP, so Offense Armor gives you raw HP and Jetpack gives you a shield token. So your unit will stay alive, and because you killed something, you get to untap 1 resource with Boba's ability, and you can play another 2-drop, 3-drop, or 1-drop, or whatever, just to gain more advantage on the board. So sometimes it's a really good play that you can make. Okay. Now we can move on to the mid and late game. So here we have a good 4 and 5 drops, so stuff like Bosk, Bouncer, Zukus, that can allow you to be efficient on 5 resource round with Boba. So the main way you wanted to play a 5 resource round in Spark Rebellion with Boba was to play a good 5-drop, get to kill something or bounce something to the opponent's hand with Bouncer, untap 1 resource with Boba as a leader, and then when you deploy him as a unit, you get to untap 2 more resources and play a 3-drop, and that was really efficient way to play the round. But now with all of the great 4-drops, you can play it slightly different. So we can play a 4-drop, so we can play a Forlorn, kill something with ambush, or play Cunning, return something to the opponent's hands, and then maybe give +4 or tap 2 units, depending on the situation. And then you get to untap 1 resource as a leader, 2 more as a when your leader deploys. So you end up with 4 resources, and you can play one of your other good 4-drops like Beckett, or maybe if it's armor or whatever. Also, you can play a Forlorn on 5 resources. You get to untap 1 resource, and then because when you deploy have 2 resources, you can play Fetch Armor right away and get the benefit of having +2 attack right away. So that gives you a little bit more tempo in some situation. So also I'm running also 2 copies of Felt Armor, and the reason for that is because I am not particularly thrilled about running in against some matchups that are that at least I think are gonna be the best decks in the meta. So it's not great if the opponent has a way to kill him before you get to play the armor, so they can use something like ECL on Stefan's Battalion or Poldameron and just kill your Boba as soon as he deploys. Also, there are a lot of upgrade removals, so stuff like Fang Fighter and Poldameron on attack ability, and just cards that defeat your unit instantly, so Power of the Dark Side, Rival's Fall, and stuff like that. And also Hard Control has Entrench, so there are quite a few, there are quite a lot of options to get rid of the armor, at least in the decks that I think are gonna be the strongest in the meta. There's one armor in the sideboard just for the matchups where you where you can abuse the armor and just win the game out of that. But yeah, I just don't wanna run too many of them in main deck because there are matchups where it's not the greatest. Also, we have Jetpack as a backup upgrade target to the which you can play also from a Smuggle deck. The Smuggle on Jetpack is really good in a lot of cases because, well, when you play Boba, you have a lot of resources, and sometimes you might find you in a situation where you have more resources than cards in your hand to spend them on, and Jetpack can just fix that situation by playing the Jetpack from your resources, and that way you can be efficient with your resources. Also, there is only 2 copies of Sukus, and yeah, I just don't like Sukus that much because when you play Forlorn, sure, you can play Forlorn, then next round you can play Sukus and one-shot the opponent leader, but there's the problem of the fact that the opponent knows about Sukus' existence, so he is likely to kill Forlorn, and if you play Sukus as just a 6/6 for 5, it's quite awkward. Like, you really need to play Waylay, return the unit to the opponent's hand, deploy your Boba, get to untap 3 resources in total and play the Sukus, and in those cases it's cool. But yeah, he's just kinda clunky in some situations, so that's why I have only 2 copies of him. And yeah, there's just some other just good stuff cards like Fire Spray, Cunning, Surprise Strike, which are very self-explanatory. Also, there's Beckett. Beckett is just a 4-drop that I really love. Like, the 4/5 stat line for 4 is a pretty good stat line, and he is pretty good in some matchups where Forlorn is not ideal. Like, Forlorn is really good when you play against other mid-range or aggressive decks, where the game is more about controlling the field. But the thing about ambushing with Forlorn is the fact that, as I've mentioned before, when you play an aggressive deck, you want to develop the board at the early stage of the game. And if you play a Forlorn, kill something, sure, you get a good trade, but that makes him vulnerable to being killed. And because you lose the board presence, the opponent can just regain the control over the game faster, and sometimes it can be a huge problem. So that's why I'm not the biggest fan of Forlorn in some matchups. But in the matchups where you don't really want to ambush with Forlorn, like Kira and stuff like that, or Hard Control, you have Beckett. So 4-drop that is 4/5, so just a pretty alright stat line. Beckett is also the Smuggle, which sometimes might come in handy. So it's a blue smuggle, so you have to pay 7 in total in order to smuggle him. But when you play against control decks like Kira or Hard Control, you can still utilize this. Like I've been playing a game on local tournament where I just was playing against Kira Green, and I was really happy to have this Beckett on my resources and being able to play him in the late stages of the game. Okay, now I want to move on to the sideboard really quickly. So in sideboard we have mainly answers to the control, so body, Bazine, and 2 more copies of TIE Phantom. Just a really decent units that can help you with hard matchups. So by default, Boba is a mid-range deck, so the main counter for him are late game oriented decks. So it only makes sense to play stuff that is countering them in your sideboard, just make your matchups as good as they can be. And yeah, body is good to get rid of events. Bazine can get rid of basically anything. The opponent obviously gets to draw a card. Also, she has a smuggle, which you can use for 4, and that's also a pretty good thing. TIE Phantom can break some removal like Power of the Dark Side, stuff like that, so he's also pretty good. Besides that, we have 1 copy of Fet's Armor and 1 copy of Zovzukus. Yeah, I've talked about why they're here. Like they're okay in some matchups, and sometimes they are not the greatest, so I just have 2 copies of each of them in main deck and 1 copy in sideboard just as a backup when they are really strong in particular matchup and I really need the 3rd copy of them. There's also the Final Showdown, so this one might be slightly surprising, but I am testing it right now and it was okay. Like the main use case for this one is when you play against a tempo-oriented deck. So like you both go face and no one of you controls the field, and there are matchups where that's the case, or you just need to be faster, so you play against Sabine and you don't have time to play Fire Spray, so just having a Final Showdown as an answer to that is okay. And one other thing that I really like about Final Showdown is it's pretty good when you play Mirror, so you play against Yellow Boba, and this matchup is gonna be quite common because Yellow Boba is thought to be the strongest at the moment. I'm not sure exactly about that, like I feel like Han Green might be slightly better, but it's for sure close, and it's still early in the meta, so it's tough to say. But the really good use case of Final Showdown is if the opponent plays Cunning and he taps 2 units or maybe 3 units if they have Beckett, you can play a Final Showdown, and all of a sudden you have all of your units ready and then can kill your opponent. And because how aggressive Yellow Boba can be, it can be enough to just finish the game outside of that. So out of that. So yeah, I've been playing just one of my local tournaments, Yellow Boba, and I've been playing the Mirror, and I played the Final Showdown on the round where my opponent played Cunning, and it just won me the game straight away. Okay. Now we can move on to the card that are worth considering, but I'm not running them at the moment. So we have stuff like Evazan, and Evazan is the guy who I'm not particularly thrilled about. And the reason for that is because there's quite a few ECL decks. So ECL is a huge counter to Evazan because the opponent can use ECL, ambush a unit, and because they spend the resources, they can untap them with bounty on Evazan, kill Evazan, and that can really stop you from dealing damage. And because they have a lot of resources, they can play more units and get the swing the game in their favor. Obviously, the Evazan has upside of being a shielded unit that has free attack, so he can give you some tempo and just deal damage in early stages of the game, which maybe something like Prop Droid wouldn't be able to because it doesn't have a shield token. But I am not the biggest fan of Evazan because there are just too many matchups where he isn't particularly great, and the upside of him being able to do a couple more swings is just not enough in my eyes to justify playing him. But I can see a meta where he might be the better choice. There's also McClanky, which synergizes really well with Evazan, because if the Evazan loses the shield token, you can play McClanky in order to replay Evazan with a fresh shield token or just resource him. And it's a good play, but I'm not the biggest fan of McClanky because it again undevelops your board, sort of. Like, because you take the unit back to your hand, you have to replay it. So if you replay something like Evazan, you have to spend those 2 resources, and sometimes you just are better off just not playing McClanky and just playing as many units on the field as possible, just in order to get as much tempo. And there are matchups where you have time to do the McClanky stuff, but I am not the biggest fan of it because I just prefer to play more units on the field and apply more pressure in that way. But it's a card that is worth considering for sure. Okay. I guess now we can talk about the elephant in the room. So New Adventure, the card that I might get some backlash for not running it in my deck, because it can synergize with some cards really well, like namely Fire Spray. So you get to, if you use it on the Fire Spray, you basically get 5 damage for 2 resources, which is a great ratio. Like when you compare it to a Fire Cost, which is a really good card that costs 3 and deals only 4 damage to the opponent base, and in some cases even less. It sounds crazy to not run this one, but the reason why I decided to not run it is because it's clunky. Like the fact that sure, you have the Fire Spray as a really good target, but the other card targets are not that great in my eyes. Like playing it on the Ambush unit is okay value, but again, there are not that many of them, and some of them, like most of them, are very likely to die quickly. Like Forlom and Bosk are the Ambush unit that you have in your deck, and both of them are a huge threat are huge potential threat for the opponent, with Zukus and Bosk's ability to deal the damage whenever you play events. So the opponent is very likely to kill them quickly, and because they ambushed something, they are likely to be low HP, so they can be killed by basically anything. Also, there is Body Rook, but I don't run Body Rook even in main deck. I can see a meta where you want to play more anti-aggro, anti-control cards in your main deck, so we play Lurker or Body or even Bazin in your main deck just to counter control. If those matchups are gonna be like really common in the meta, but yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this one. And also, yeah, it's just playing it as a, like, you can use it as a 2 resource tap an enemy unit, and okay, that's value sometimes, but I just don't like the idea of playing this card in your deck because it's not consistent. Also, there are a lot of matchups in this meta where I just side out Fire Spray because Fire Spray is too slow. Like I play against Han, and like I play against Tarkin, Sabine, and Fire Spray feels just kind of slow, and I would rather just play more early stuff to finish the opponent faster. So yeah, that's the reason why I don't like New Adventure. There's also a Triple Dark Raid and ATST, so really good cards that synergize with themselves. So basically, if you play one of them, you have to play the other. And it sounds kind of crazy to play ATST because I just spoke about how the slow meta is, how fast sometimes meta can be, and playing a 6-drop deck that doesn't have immediate impact sounds kind of crazy, but if you play it from a Triple Dark Raid, you can play him on 5 resource round, so you get a 6-7 body on 5 resources. You can, in case of ATST, you can attack the opponent unit, kill it, and then because ATST has Overwhelm, you get the Overwhelm damage, and because you killed a unit, you get to untap 1 resource with Boba, and you can play New Adventure, so you get to replay the ATST. He's a fresh 6-7 with Overwhelm that the opponent has to deal with. You played him 1 turn earlier on 5 resources, which is a lot of value also. There is also Fire Spray, which is another unit that you can play with triple dark rate on 5 resources. You can deal 5 damage to the opponent base, and then play New Adventure, and then deal 5 more damage, which is also insane. So yeah, New Adventure is really good with triple dark rate and this type of Boba version that you can run. I've been playing at the start, before stuff like Beckett was revealed, I was running this type of version, but at the moment I feel like the version that I showed you a moment ago is just stronger. But if you want to play this triple dark rate oriented deck, you can for sure. But you just have to keep in mind and calculate the risk of you breaking with the triple dark rate, because sure, you have stuff like 7th Defender and Mercenary Gunship as your backup targets, but they're not great. And yeah, if you like resource 2 or 3 copies of ATST / Fire Spray in the first 2 rounds, then you might be better off just resourcing the triple dark rate, because it might be too risky to play it. Besides that, we have No Good To Me Dead, so a really good card if the meta becomes really tempo-oriented. Relentless Pursuit. This one's interesting, like I see people switching it for a Waylay, but I like Waylay more because Waylay is more consistent. Relentless Pursuit has a few requirements in order to use it, like you have to have a unit on the field that costs more than or the same as the target you want to capture, and also if it in a lot of cases you really want it to be a bounty hunter, so you get the benefit of giving it shield token, because if you don't, then the opponent can still quickly kill your unit and then regain that captured unit back. And yeah, that's the reason why I'm not the biggest fan of Relentless Pursuit. Like it requires more think to be used. Sure, it has an upside of like capturing something, and then your unit has a shield token, so maybe the opponent would want to kill your unit, but because of the shield tokens, he can't, and basically you can attack the opponent base for 1 or 2 more rounds than you otherwise would be able to. But yeah, I feel like the upside of Relentless Pursuit is not enough to justify it, because you can play on stuff like Fire Spray, on like Snoke or whatever, just more of late game bombs that Relentless Pursuit is basically useless on. And yeah, I prefer Waylay, but if you really want to, you can play something like 2 copies of Waylay, 2 copies of Relentless Pursuit, or 1 copy of Waylay, 2 Relentless Pursuit, or the other way around. So basically, if you really want to, you can do that. There's also Sneak Attack as an option, and this one is like same as it was in Spark of Rebellion. If the meta becomes in a way that 5 ambush kills a lot of stuff, and 4 damage from Bosk is not enough to kill a lot of the targets, then you can switch to Sneak Attack in order to make sure that you get the kill with ambush. But I don't think that's gonna be the case, but it's an consideration for sure. Okay, now I wanted to move on to the part where I'm talking about the cards that I don't even see making to the yellow Boba at all. Like, sure, you can make some cases where you want to play them, but I don't like the idea. Like, so starting off, we have Cloud Rider, and the reason why I don't like the idea of Cloud Rider in Boba is because if you play him on turn 1 and use his ambush ability in order to kill something, then you basically are even. Like neither of you develop the board. So because as a Boba, in a lot of cases you are the aggro player, it's not really a good trade for you. Sure, you get to, in some cases, if you have Greedo also on your hand, that's a good play, because you get to play Greedo for free and develop the board in that way. But it's not enough to justify playing it, because sometimes it's not gonna work. Like, there are some cards in the meta that can counter it, like Sabine unit, which is run in many meta decks at the moment. ISB agent, which is run in Tarkin. Also, Rake has a few units that can survive and kill it, like R2, maybe Moise Farmer, and stuff like that. So there are a lot of cases where this card doesn't really work. And also there is a Crafty Smuggler that each Boba decklist runs at the moment. So yeah, that's why I don't like this guy. There's also Wookiee. Wookiee is a free unit that is a great turn 1 play, just has a premium stat line for 2 resources, but the problem about Wookiee is the fact that in Boba, in a lot of cases in later stages of the game, you still want to play those cheap cards, and because of the bounty, you can sometimes screw you over by exhausting your Boba or Fire Spray, and sometimes that just might just straight up lose you the game. So I don't feel like it's worth running this guy at all. There's Carbonite. Carbonite is option to kill some expensive stuff. Kill. I mean, it's not killing, but it's exhausting, and the opponent and the unit doesn't get to exhaust, so it's basically killing. But I would rather just play Waylay in order to get the resource back with Boba and just apply more pressure that way. And with Boba, in a lot of cases, just playing Waylay is essentially equal to killing the stat, because you finish the game before the opponent can get really the advantage of having the one more card in their hand. Besides that, we have Government Guards. Government Guards is a 4-drop that I am not particularly thrilled about. Like in the meta at the moment, if you want to have a way to stop aggro, so the main use case of Sentinel is to stop the opponent from being aggressive, and because you play Boba, you are mainly the aggressive player in most matchups, so having a Sentinel is not necessary. Like, it's good if both players are racing, so both players are just dealing damage to the base and want to quickly finish the game, and then you can play the Sentinel and it's cool, but I don't think it's enough. Like, I feel like you're better off just playing Forlorn in those cases, because you can kill something and then stay alive, and if you play against something that is aggressive, it's really good. And then if you play against more control deck, Beckett is better because he has Muggle and just a better stat line for resources. So I don't like guards. There is also Snapshot Reflex and Shoot First, which are just low cost, not that big of an impact card. So I don't like the idea of running those cards in Boba, because in Boba, in a lot of cases, you want to play more than one card in a round, because you get to untap resources with Boba, and sometimes you might run out of cards in your hand. So that's why I don't like this. I was especially really hating the idea of playing this guy, or playing one of those cards, both of those cards basically, in green Boba, because there you had also ramp. But I feel like the same concept applies to yellow Boba right now, because you have so many better cards to run instead of this one. So yeah, I would advise to not run this one. And yeah, I believe that should do it. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.